Welcome to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Our mission is to bring you discussions on a wide array of topics in the coaching world to grow players on and off the court. You can connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and also reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Now, here's your host, Coach Mike Hernandez.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us wherever you are and on whatever platform you're listening to us on. As always, your support is ever so greatly appreciated. Now, today's topic is it's a positive one. We're sharing good news and sharing success stories today, so I'm really looking forward to getting into that. We're going to be talking about the process of the rebuild, about rebuilding a program, and then getting that program into contendership, getting them into a position where they're having success, where they're having wins, the real fun, like I said, success story of rebuilding in a program into a more successful one than it was before. Every year, as we know, new coaches take jobs where they're tasked with building up a program, rebuilding a program, or just getting a program on the right track. And so hopefully this episode is informative and interesting, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty we're going to be able to take away from it. So my guest today, Coach Jeff Wilson, is going to share what he and his staff did to do just that, to rebuild a program and get their program where they want it to be. So I'm happy to introduce him. Coach, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
Doing quite well. And like I said, I'm looking forward to this, the success stories, the positive stories like this. This is the real fun stuff. So I'm really looking forward to diving into this with you. So Coach, let's go ahead and get started with an introduction to you, where basketball's taken you, where coaching's taken you. What's the journey been for you?
Sure. I graduated high school in 2009, played high school basketball.
Too. Shout out 09.
Hey,
All right, go ahead, Coach.
Played basketball and everything, was on some really good teams, had some really good coaches. I was going to try to walk on to Portland State, and I had been in contact with the coach, and then I actually got into a car accident about a week before graduation. And so because of some injuries and stuff, I could not play really do anything athletic. And so I decided to stay in town and go to college locally, and ran into my old high school coach as a 19-year-old. And he was like, "Hey, do you want to coach a little 5th grade boys team for me through our feeder program?" And I was like, "Sure." And I ended up coaching those boys from 5th graders all the way until they were juniors in high school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then got really lucky, 9 kids that were on that 5th grade team played all the way through. A few of them grew to 6, 7, a few of them were guards, right? It just worked out. Great group of kids and families. But yeah, they got me to realize that I really was excited about doing this. So I worked in the feeder programs for my Kings High School and Blanchette High School, which are both private schools and also around my high school area. And just really getting my foot in the door, learning how to coach. And then I started coaching AAU basketball, running camps, running small trainings, big trainings. And then my goal was to be a varsity boys head coach. And in 2013 and 2014, that season, I was freshman boys coach at my high school where I went and everything. And my plan, like I said, was to continue moving up the chain, hopefully, and had a good record there. But throughout the last 2 years previous to that, I started coaching a really talented AAU girls varsity team. And because the way that our state works and the rules is you can't coach your boys or girls during certain off-season periods. So since I wasn't allowed to coach the boys from my high school that I just finished coaching as freshmen, I was working with girls since I was allowed to do that, and got lucky with a really talented, really connected group of girls. Started coaching them as sophomores in high school in AAU ball. Though that group of 9 girls just all graduated from college, so they're all 22 or 23. Mm-hmm. We still have our group chat going from sophomores as high school. That's and awesome. So they kind of flipped my attitude on, really realizing that in coaching girls was so much more enjoyable to me. And so following that year as a freshman boys coach, I switched and started being the JV girls coach at my high school for 2 years. And in my second season, our varsity team finished 6th in state, led the state in scoring, really talented group. in 2 years there, I had a 28-12 record. So like had success also. So that was fun as a JV girls coach.
Mm-hmm.
And then following that season where we finished 6th overall, the head coach, the varsity assistant coach, and the C team coach all stepped down because they had different career opportunities. And so everyone kind of thought I might slide into the head coach at Edmonds Woodway, which is where I went. And another coach from our area who has coached high school basketball for 25 years, I knew him off the court. He applied for the job and he ended up getting it too. Which again caught me a little bit off guard just because, I went to high school there. I coached in the feeder program. I coached on the boys and girls side. Right? I was part of the community. But yeah, they gave it to him and that's okay. And he has done a great job since taking over there. And then I was also applying for a few other jobs and went through 2 or 3 interviews and didn't get any of those. So I ended up actually taking a year off, which was weird because I was in the middle of this like 6-7 year grind. Right. And had to take a year off because, it was too late for me to hop on staff anywhere else. And then the following season, the following spring, I applied to Lake Washington, which is where I'm at right now. And so that was 2017. I got the job and now I'll be going into my 4th year at Lake Washington.
And I want to touch on something that you said that really resonates with me. And I think it's important to just bring to light and discuss real quick, which is that you, like me, were thinking that we were, destined, coach boys and, that boys varsity position, coaching boys was what we had our mindset on. But like you, I coach girls as well. And I love coaching girls. And obviously you fell in love with the girls basketball game as well. So I want to touch on that because I really want to, like I said, kind of get that out in the open. What made you really get invested once you were coaching girls? And more importantly, why should coaches be open, especially male coaches, why should they be open to giving themselves the option in their mind of coaching girls? Why is that so important that they keep that option open?
Yeah. So to me, I loved being a part of teams when I was a player, that connection of that you have with your group of guys, you're in practices, bus rides, all that type of stuff, and then getting into coaching, you have that same obviously bond with your kids. And to me, the girls, they find that common thread that they join. And the support that like our girls on the bench give that our players on the court is so fun to like just sit back and watch sometimes, right? There was a few games in our state tournament this last year, which 2 or 3 girls didn't get any minutes, and all year I had played pretty much all 10 players all game. And then we got to the state tournament, and I kind of shrunk the rotation a little bit. And those 3 girls were the first to stand up off the bench and high five, and timeouts were called and they'd be running out there, or a play would work and they'd high five me and they kind of knew they weren't playing any minutes. And to me, like, that was everything, because it's like their pure excitement for what their teammates and lifelong friends were achieving was so exciting to them.
You're
and
100%.
And of course, sure, you might get a girl that has some attitude or, might give you some sass here or there, but like that common togetherness to me is so much of a thing from a coaching perspective is so fun. At practices, there's not like little cliques or anything, right? Everybody's talking to each other. During drills, I can put anybody with partners with each other and they all, get along. And, I know I'm lucky in a sense. We had a group that was very connected last year, but that's also part of my culture that I've tried to build. But yeah, it's just the togetherness, the team camaraderie, just the whole team feeling to me is so much different from the girl and boys side.
Well, it sounds like that group chat that you still have going kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though, we don't talk on it obviously that much, but it'll be someone's birthday and all the girls will wish a happy birthday on there. Or like a few of the girls were, playing college basketball and one of them had a, 18-point game and a big win and everybody on the group chat, even though, we all are going to school or all the girls are going to school in different states and we're all at different places in our life, it's like, oh, Maddie, great game, or Missy, great game, right? Or something. And then when my team started to have success, they're like, Jeff, we saw you had a huge win last night, right? And it's just that kind of common connection that has continued on.
Yeah, I 100% agreed with that excitement and that like togetherness that can be built. And I know it can be built with both boys and girls, but just what I've seen with the girls teams that even I've coached, just that togetherness, having each other's back, just being completely supportive of one another. And obviously as a coach, you have to build that, but I think there's nothing like it. I haven't really ever seen anything quite like that on a boys team.
Yep.
Quite the way that like I've seen it with like girls and the way that they come together. So yeah,
Sure.
I just want to touch on that. Keep going.
Yeah, and I think that other coaches, of course, have said this and everything too. And of course, boys are going to be you'll get some alley-oop dunks or you'll get some crazy highlight plays. And I've coached against top level D1 girls and athletes out there on the girls' side that it's like holy moly, we can't stop her. But that being said, the fundamental side of the girls' game is so much more. That it's such a more of a valued skill set, and the girls really focus on that. Sometimes a boy can get caught in midair and still make a great pass or shot. Girls were great at jump stops or pump fakes and stuff. And again, during free throws, the girls run over to me and ask something, about what they can do better on the play before or on the bench. They'll say, hey, Jeff, coach, or hey, Jeff, how would we handle that better? And so it's just that common thread of seeming like they really enjoy being coached and everything, I think is a big thing from a coaching aspect.
Right. And just to add to that, I think for coaches who might be, looking for that first job or for that first opportunity, if you see an opportunity available for like a struggling girls program, especially, there's a good chance that program and those girls are really lacking in some fundamental areas and more of those like ground level skills. And if you're a coach who's all about teaching the game and teaching fundamentals and all of the in-game type stuff, I think if you take a program like that, you'll have a lot of fun with it. You'll have a lot of fun teaching the game, as you kind of mentioned, and teaching all those things involved with it as well.
Yes. We'll probably touch base on it a little later on, but yeah, one of the most athletic players I've ever coached. She'll be a senior for me this upcoming year, but she's so fast with the ball. But part of some of our offense we run, and just in general, we need to jump stop, and especially jump stop in the paint, right? So we're not out of control. Maybe don't take charges. And at our little end of the year, Zoom team party, because we couldn't meet in person, we were all going around. We're like, what's, something that pops out in your mind from this season? And she goes, jump stops, right? It's jump stops every day. We worked on pivots every day. We worked on ball fakes every day, right?
Yeah. No, that's great. And that's, yeah, it goes to show you really get to teach the game, especially with girls programs. I feel like in my experience, that's great. Now let's touch on as we kind of get into our topic here of the rebuild and kind of getting the program into contendership and where you want to be. I know that as a coach, you have work that you need to do and work that you had done to kind of get yourself as a coach where you wanted to be in terms of your own growth and your own kind of building yourself as a coach and your own profile. So I want to touch on what you as a coach kind of did in terms of your own professional growth. How did you grow in your understanding of the game? Did you have were there mentors, books, seminars, clinics that you went to? What developed you as a coach over these past few years?
Sure. Yeah, definitely some important ones have stepped out. We up here in Washington, our Washington State Girls Basketball Coaching Association puts on a really great clinic. It was actually over Zoom the last 3 days of last weekend, where they had college coaches from all over the country, high school coaches from our state come in and talk and all that type of thing. And that clinic, the last 2 seasons, 3 days, when we were allowed to go in person, I was there for all 3 days, listening. And I applied so much from that, learning from both college and great high school coaches in our area. Seattle University puts on a really good free clinic up here. That's an all-day event. I went to that and applied a lot of things from that. The Daily Coach is a email that I get every day. And it's a really cool thing you can subscribe to. And they give out great stories about people persevering, coaching methods. And a lot of their stuff isn't always sports related. It's how people, got through times in a war and how the strategy of keeping your team together versus what they did in a war together. It's just like, it's a really cool thing that I subscribe to and look forward to that email every day. The Basketball Immersion website, which is also called the Basketball Podcast, has really good stuff, different drills to do in practice, different sets, whatever you're looking for. And the podcast He's always got on top level coaches from all over the world. So it's really interesting to listen to, the different mindsets the different coaches do and, the way they do things. And then Dan Taylor is based out of King's High School here in this greater Seattle area. And he has been a girls coach for 2 different programs for multiple years. And he's also the president of our Washington State Girls Basketball Coaching Association.
Okay.
Really great guy, runs really great sets. I've coached a bunch of Kings girls in AAU ball. And then oddly enough, he was my PE teacher when I was in elementary school. And so I kind of got to know him that way. And then the school that he was at before Kings was my high school's rivalry school. And he was coaching girls there at the time. So as I was coming up as a player myself, and then once I joined on staff, he was, he was coaching on the other side, on the girls' side. So he's been huge. I can always call him at any time and bounce ideas off him or ask questions or, just general things. And yeah, he's one of the best.
So it sounds like something that's really important to you and probably helped you as a growth as a coach. And then with the success you've had at your current program is being connected and staying connected with coaches and having some sort of network that you could rely on. Am I right in understanding it? It sounds like you're very connected.
Yes, there's definitely a big group of us, and certain guys, Coach Randy Edens, who you've had on your podcast before, especially during this off season, I've become closer with him and actually was on a podcast of his. One of our big rivals in the state is Arlington High School, and I'm close to their coach, and we connect a lot. Actually, one of my best friends, same age as you and I, grew up playing. He was a boys C team coach, boys JV coach for 6 years, and he just finished his first year as a girls varsity coach because in AAU ball, I got him to start coaching girls, and then he made the switch over. And so bounce ideas off him a lot. But yeah, I'm just in constant contact with 5 or 6 coaches, that we can touch base basically, hey coach, how'd it go tonight? Or, hey, I saw that you Coach Randy early on in the season had a close loss and coach, what happened in the fourth quarter? Just, and you sometimes we'll end up playing against each other in a game, like what has happened with a few coaches, and sometimes we don't. Right. But yeah, staying connected to each other and bouncing off different things throughout the season. That's for sure.
And I think that one of the things that can sneak up on a coach, and it's happened to me too, is that coaching, kind of in the same vein for me as a teacher as well, could become a very isolating profession if you let it become that, where you almost feel like you're on an island. As a teacher, you're just in your classroom, you don't interact with a lot of adults, and coaching can kind of be that way too, where you're just kind of insular within your staff and your team. But I think, like you said, it's good to just have, people just to talk to, and just people who know what you're going through and know the language that you're speaking of basketball, know what you're have experience bouncing ideas off of. I think if it's just for that, I think it's well worth it to just have, some people in your network that you can text and just have that conversation if you just need to blow off steam or just bounce ideas off of.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. And there's even been, and it's funny through social media, of course, and just through coaching against each other, there's been other coaches that I've connected with. There's a coach, Kareem McDonald, who's actually a JUCO coach up here out of Green River, which is kind of south of Seattle. And, he's someone that just kind of checks in every, 2 weeks. Hey coach, how you doing? Or you seen anything new that you'd like? And it's just, I love it when he reaches out to me. There's another coach, Brady Bomber, who's from up north. And I really had never talked to him before this pandemic, but I just had followed him because he's a year older than me and already has 3 or 4 state championships and has only been coaching for about 6 years, and he's just killing it up there. And, now we've touched base during this pandemic and talked quite a bit. So it's been fun to kind of connect through people that, you just kind of follow their successes on social media or their team, and now has become someone that, you kind of talk to on a regular basis.
Right. And just to wrap up that thought, coaches love talking. They love talking basketball. And so if there's people you want to reach out to talk hoops or connect with, there's never a shortage, I feel like. So yeah, absolutely. Take advantage of that and build that network. Well worth it.
Yep.
All right. So let's kind of go into when it came to the rebuild and then the remodel of this program. Let's take us back to the very beginning here. When you first were introduced to this program, when you first, took it over, for a lack of a better term, what were some things that you noticed right away? What were some areas that you identified as like, all right, this we're keeping in place, this is good, here's some things we need to change? What were those like first few days and first few weeks in the program like?
Sure. And just to give you a quick little backstory of what it was, they had won a total of, I believe 6 or 8 games over the previous 4 seasons. So 1 or 2 wins a season, when I did take it over, and it was my first head coaching job, right? Yeah. So a little bit, was things I wanted to try to do, but then also, obviously trying to become competitive out of it. Some things that, I noticed initially, just really low numbers for our summer basketball. I'd be lucky to get 3 or 4 girls there. And the girls that did come seemed to enjoy it, and I try to go to them and say, hey, invite your friends, get them to come to one practice. I'll be able to get them to stay after that. But
there you go.
Get them to get here as much as you can. And then, just, I guess, the overall excitement about the program just like wasn't very high, when I took over from, other coaches in my conference are being like, oh, you took over there, huh? Or just like, oh, you took that job, right? And part of the reason I applied to that job is I did look at their previous year records, and I thought if I get in there, I can really try to do things the way I want to, right? And I had an idea of how I wanted to do things. And, if I took over a program that I was expected to have immediate success, maybe I can't do it, some of those things, And then another big one that I had to really try to change early on was daily energy. I'm crazy energetic at practice. I bounce off the walls. The girls really feed off that energy. I've had girls tell me before that have played multiple sports and are seniors or something, be like, you're the most energetic coach I've ever been around, right? And so me coming in with great energy, I thought started to give them better energy every day, and be like excited to get to practice. It wasn't just another practice. And then just accountability, right? We're trying to set certain terms, and if practice starts at 3:00, that doesn't mean get there at 2:55 without your shoes on, right? Starting to change how we did things early on. One of the few, really important things that I did keep that were already there in Kirkland, really is a great community. That I've had no parent issues in 3 seasons, and I know a lot of coaches can't say that.
Making a lot of coaches jealous right now.
I know. I'm very lucky, and knock on wood and stuff, but I've got great kids that I coach right now, and that's because I've got great parents in my program that are supportive of what we do. But they were like that when I got there. The admin has been really supportive of my entire journey of being there, being able to stop in and check in with my AD or catch up with the principal about this, or just when I'm walking, around campus and stuff, a lot of people wave to me or, hey coach, great win last night, things like that. And then we had a really engaged booster program that was really ready to help out and kind of, talk with me and work with me to see how we could grow the program, from the outside and, and through the community. So those were important stepping stones and, cornerstones that were already in place for me.
I want to touch on the girls that you had returning, and I've had a conversation about this with a couple coaches, including on a couple episodes on here. When you take over for a team that maybe hasn't had a lot of success, you'll get all kinds of emotions, and you'll get all kind of feelings from returning players, especially like your juniors and seniors who've maybe had a little bit of a tough go at it previously. What did you notice in terms of the players' attitude? Were they excited? Were they ready to go right away? Was there something different that you had to do in terms of working with them? What was that like?
Sure. Yeah. So I walked into the first day of tryouts. I had a plan ready, right, for tryouts. I was excited, and we had 13 girls there total. And at the end,
it's done after that.
No. We had 2 days of tryouts total, and we kept 15, 9 on varsity, 5 on JV, and then a few of the JV girls convinced 2 more of their players to go so that they could have 7 on JV. But so of players returning, I carried 3 on varsity. 3 on varsity that were freshmen, and 2 of those girls have started every single games of their career.
Okay.
Talented players, work hard, really got after it. So they obviously were kind of in from day one and everything. But honestly, I had 4 seniors, 1 junior, 1 sophomore. And again, I don't know if I was just lucky walking in, but all of those upperclassmen day one were like ready to accept and listen and learn what I was trying to implement. And, and I applauded them. And I've told people before, they had 3 coaches in 4 years, especially the seniors. Right.
Yeah.
And to them, it could have just been like, oh, it's just another coach and, it's going to be another season and blah, blah, blah.
And you'll never see him again after.
Yeah. Yeah. And they really like locked in and, and the girl that was a junior, we had a great season her second year. And then the girl that was a sophomore, we made a state championship this year. So like, them buying in from day one was really a part of what I think, obviously helped us reach where we've been able to get.
Well, I think that's a good kind of note to keep in mind for those who might be like taking over a program. And I know you mentioned about like the open gyms and things that you had, but I think those open gyms or those, more optional basketball related things, that's where you're going to find your players who like, they love basketball. Like they're not going to need to be sold too much because they love playing. They'll show up to any basketball related, whether it's a camp or a workout or whatever the case may be. And I think that's something that is really great that you had, where it seems like those players, they came in like they were either they loved basketball or they just loved having something to do, or they loved playing with each other. There was some love was already built in place there. That sounds like you just kind of had to stoke the fires and just kind of keep that going, because it sounds like there's a lot of excitement.
I mean, during the summer, I would normally, again, this year, obviously we didn't, but normally we do these Saturday morning, 10 a.m. cardio only on the football field. And even that first year, I mean, I had all 4 seniors show up, and I don't know if that was them trying to impress me or anything, but it's just like them being there, showed our underclassmen that, you need to come to these things, even though they're considered optional. And during the summer, kids might want to sleep in or maybe want to hit the lake or the beach. And, I'm like, girls, just come in and get up, 30 to 45 minutes of cardio, and then you can enjoy the rest of your day. And last summer, well, not 2 summers ago, I guess, right, before last season, I mean, on a Saturday morning, I had 26 girls at cardio at 10 a.m. And I was like, and I think that was built in from our first year, that it's like, yeah, they're optional, but like, if we're going to get there, we got to get there together. And, let's go to these optional things. Let's get better together.
And what that sounds like to me is, it kind of goes back to your mindset, is that you came in to that program, or this program that you're currently at, is kind of like you hit the ground running and you were ready to get to work right away and to build things up to the way that you wanted them to be. Because I think that it's an avenue that a coach could take, is they could go into a job like that and they could maybe try to, see how things are, maybe try to work within the system a little bit and just try to like not change too much and just maybe make some little changes here and there. But it sounds like to me that you had like your plan, that you kind of alluded to earlier, but you already had like a vision in your mind of where you thought this team could go. And you were putting a foundation in place for the players to kind of rise up to that expectation that you had in your mind. I don't think I'm off base in thinking that, but I'll let you elaborate if I am wrong.
No, you're dead on. I mean, I really, like I said, I wanted to be a varsity coach. I thought once I took over a program, I at least would have a real plan idea of what I wanted to do. You're going to make and miss shots, right? That's what basketball is. But I was like, I can control the other stuff, at least in preparation. And like, in our program, we've got our 3 core, philosophies, our notes that everybody knows, right? Type thing. But energy and effort outweighs everything else is number 1. And it's like, that's stuff that we can control. And I guess when I came in, and even though we only had, early on 3 or 4 girls at tryouts, or the following year, maybe only 6 or 7 at one time, but it's like, or one time I did a optional weight training and 2 girls came and I ran the weight training, right? And my whole thing is just like, I'm always early to practice. I make sure every girl gets picked up, right? I run our camps. I run these optional weight trainings and cardios and things. And it's just like my whole thing I tried to get across to them. And as I keep telling them, it's like, girls, I'm here. I'm going to put in the effort to be here. I have a practice plan every day. I have, an idea of what we're going to achieve each week. And I'm like, I am more than willing to put in the time and effort. Like, join me in this. I promise I'll make it fun. I promise I'll make it energetic. But like, if we do this now, it's going to pay dividends. And that's just like what I've tried to get across. And it's like, the girls come in excited for practice, right? The girls come to these optional weight trainings, optional, cardio sessions, because it's goofy. We have fun doing it. I play music, but it's like, we get after it, but we get after it together, right?
Yeah, no, and it's just the energy and the effort and the excitement where, we kind of touched on this a couple times, but if you as a coach make it seem like, wherever it is that you're at is like, that's where you want to be, and you act like that's where you've always wanted to be. It's like been your lifelong goal to be at that particular school, and making wherever place you're currently at the most like exciting program you possibly can. I mean, that there's an energy there, like you kind of mentioned earlier, that people feed off of, and they're like, all right, well, like this coach is all in, so like, something good must be happening in this program, because look at how excited this coach is. So, just even doing that just kind of can bring some interest and some energy, and just a little bit of excitement that maybe wasn't there before. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And again, it doesn't really cost much to bring energy and effort. So whether it's from the coaching staff or if that's what you're asking from the players.
And of course, we know the girls, and we're player, boys or girls, right? We know they're going through school, and maybe they're working, or they're starting to look into colleges, boyfriends, girlfriends, normal friends, right? Family, all that stuff they got going on, right? And so I know of course, there's going to be days where they're just a little bit more tired. And I've said to them before, so one day we'll be a little low on energy or something, and I'm super energetic, and they're like, coach, where do you get it from? And I'm like, hey, I just worked 8 hours, right? It's like, but I go, to me, I look forward to this. I go, I'm driving 70 miles an hour to practice. I'm not driving the speed limit because I'm so excited to be here right now, and it's like, when I'm that energetic, it's like naturally it oozes off onto them a little bit. Right. And I try, even on days when I'm really tired, I'll be like sitting, in my car at the light before the school. And I'm just like sitting there, and I'm like, oh, okay, I got to get it going in a second, and I'll park my car, and I'm still feeling a little tired. And then something happens where I take a step through that door into the gym, and it just like, it snaps, and I'm like ready to go. And then the girls come in, and they'll be tired, and I'm just, hey, how's it going? How was school today? What did you guys eat? Right. And it's like, look at me weird. And then, but their energy starts to pick up too.
Yeah, no, 100%. I have the exact same feeling where you hit that gym, or, for me, I think it's like when I change from my work clothes into whatever I'm going to like do coaching in, it's like, all right, that's like my costume, or almost like, all right, this is my clothing change. Now I'm here, I'm in coaching mode, and whole new energy. It's a whole new energy that I get out of it. So yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Now, there's a couple of things I know you mentioned about punctuality and a couple other things, but let's talk a little bit about off-court practices. So the things that are built in place off of the court, whether it's team building, rules, goal setting, just general philosophies. What were some of those off-court practices that you and your staff implemented that you think were helpful in getting your team where you wanted it to be?
Sure. Yeah. So we, of course we do fundraiser things, and, where we hope all the girls come to that so that they can build, start to get to know each other more than they do from school. We try to do team dinners at least once a week, if possible, at a different player's house, or sometimes just in the hallway of the gym or something like that. But we try to, in the sense of goal setting, oddly enough, we might have a few goals, but we don't set too many, because to us, it's like, if you're setting some sort of goal, there's only, if you don't reach that goal, then maybe the season feels like it wasn't a successful one. Right, I heard a coach say that one time. Yep. I've gotten a little bit away from goals, because it's like, only one team can win a state championship, right? And we made it to the state championship this year, even though nobody thought we would. And so we don't want the girls to think that this was not a successful season, right? They had the best season arguably in school history. So we don't want them to think just because we didn't win state, right, it wasn't a successful season. But sure. So we really tried to implement the idea of, the 1% idea, where let's get 1% better every day, and then when you guys go and have that 15, 20 point game, when you'd only ever scored 4 or 6 points game, the parents are going to be like, oh my gosh, that player's, had this great game. No, they worked every day, right? They got better every day. They stayed after practice and got up shots every day, right? And like, that's why they had the 15 point game. or something like that. And then some other things that we just like tried to like really emphasize is how we went about supporting each other. So like we do something called throwing roses, and we do it after every game, and where you have to go around and say something good that one of your teammates did in the game, but you can't say the thing that another one of your teammates said, right? So if you come around, Sophia made a lot of threes, then the next girl can't be like, Sophia shot the ball well, right? We have to say something else, right? Mm-hmm. And one game or something, we had a good game or everything, and I was excited to move on to the next thing because it was a big win. And I just had forgotten for the roses, because we usually do it after our post-game talk, and all the players were like, wait, what about roses? Because they were so excited to talk about what their teammates did well during that game, right? Yeah. Not what they did well, right? What their teammates did well. Another thing, we did, which I implemented this year, is like the girls that aren't in the game during timeouts. So we've got the 5 in a game that are sitting down on the bench. The girls that are standing up have to lock arms. Part of the reason we do that, right, is they can't like drift away from the huddle then, right? They kind of have to be locked in on what's going on in that timeout, right? So that when they do get in, they make sure, that they didn't miss on anything. So just, and then the other big thing that we did is I give them this sheet 3 or 4 times a season, and it's called 3 questions. And those 3, and I have the girls fill it out. They don't put their names on it, but it's the 3 questions are, what is one thing that you enjoy that we're doing? What is one thing that you dislike that we are doing at, practices? And what, if you could change any one thing, what would it be? And the whole point of that is because I have a plan and idea of what I want to do, of course. And, my staff and I work on that in the off season and talk all season long. But at the end of the day, I want to figure out how we can get better together. If there's a drill that everybody doesn't like, I want to know it. Let's get rid of it, right? I don't want me to say we're going to do this drill and they're not excited about it, right? And if they like to do one drill, a little bit more, then I want to implement that once or twice a practice, or once or twice a week if it's something that, we're getting better at. And the one thing that, that they could change, I found out that the way that we were warming up practices, 7 out of the 10 girls didn't really like that. And I was like, that's totally okay. Let's change it up, right? And because it's anonymous, they feel comfortable enough to, maybe say it, maybe where they don't in person type thing. So just those are a few things that we try to do to turn it more into about what the program is doing compared to what, I'm doing individually.
I think those surveys or anything similar to a survey is so helpful. I think that it may be a little bit difficult for coaches maybe to like hear that feedback or hear something like that, because it might sound like, oh, my players don't like that we do this and they take it personally. But I don't think that's how a coach should take that at all. I think rather a coach should think that, well, if I can change this and my players like it more, then they're probably going to play better and they're going to be more successful. And I think that was one of the things I know I had to learn kind of early, both in my teaching and coaching career, that if a player didn't like something, like whether it was a drill or if, a student of mine didn't really like something in my class, it wasn't personal against me. It was just something that we were doing that they didn't really like. And that if I, as a coach or a teacher, had the ability to change it and it made everything better, then why wouldn't I do that as a coach? It just seems like a logical thing to do, because it would just make everybody happier, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. I don't think it does. You can speak and correct me if I'm wrong, to maybe change up a drill a little bit or change something up a little bit so that more people like doing it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah, and I never, even if there was a drill that I thought was really good and it popped up on there that maybe the girls didn't like, I was like, that's okay. And I, and it's kind of in that process of why I keep going to those clinics or reaching out to other coaches or listening to podcasts, right? Because it's like, it doesn't matter where we're at, right? We can keep learning. And so that's what I'm trying to get across to the girls too. I want to try to tell them that, hey, I have an idea, but it doesn't mean that it's always going to be the right one. And I want them to know that I'm more than willing to listen to their thoughts on it, right? This is not like a dictatorship program or something. All the times in games, when a girl's shooting a free throw or something or coming out of a timeout, I go, hey, Rosa, what do you want to run on defense this time, right? Or, hey, Elise, what press are we doing, right? And it's because at the end of the day, they're the ones playing. And maybe they're thinking that the 1-2-2 looks a little bit better than the 2-2-1, right, or something. And so I'm constantly trying to check in with them to figure out that, like, yes, we're doing this, but again, we're getting back to one of our core things. We're getting there together. It's not just me doing it to get us there, right? We're getting there because we're communicating.
Well, and in doing that, and I think that when it comes to doing something like a rebuild, or if you're taking over a team that isn't as successful, and you put in those things in place where a player can, call like a defense that they want to do, or something to that extent. Like if they do call like, hey, I want to do like a 1-3-1, and you're thinking to yourself, like, why in the world would we do that? As a coach, that gives you really valuable insight, though, into what your players are seeing on the court and what their thought process is. And I think that that's like such valuable information that you can get. And there's so much that you could learn just from hearing what they think they should run. And it's a way to kind of get in their head, it seems.
Yes, totally agree with all that. And again, and to me too, it, especially like on the offensive side, a certain thing from last season just popped into my head where our leading scorer is our point guard, but she has good assist numbers too and everything. But, she was having a good scoring game, but one of our best shooters had just hit a 3 after she had missed some.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those plays where one of those times where I was like, hey, what do you want next time? I said this to my point guard, Rosa, and she's like, can we run snap for Sophia? And that's one of our quick hitters to get an open 3. And that to me, I was like, she could have selfishly wanted to run snap for herself to get herself for an own 3, or she could have wanted to run just our base set offense or something. But because Sophia had hit a 3 after missing her first, few, that she wanted to keep her rolling. And that was like one of those times where I don't know if I would have called snap at that time, but I was like, okay, let's run in, to try to get Sophia a 3. So that's giving them that freedom too, to kind of make those decisions.
And when it came to implementing some of these off-court practices that you mentioned, such as the roses and the way that you go through, even things like timeouts and things of that nature, was the buy-in, was it there immediately? Was everybody all on board? Did you have some people giving you the side eye that you had to, kind of convince them that this was how we do things? What was that process like in terms of the buy-in?
On a daily basis, we emphasize, regularly, daily, a routine of what we are trying to achieve with them. And I think by getting that message across, when we come in to drop something new, or we have a new idea or a plan of what we're going to do, I think because of that daily message and that us as coaches are following through on those messages, I think our buy-in has been better in that sense. Because, like I said, we're there every day talking, energetically as coach. Every day we're talking about making extra passes. Every day we're talking about energy and effort, right? I'll stop to practice and be like, if you can't sprint back there, right, then let me know, right? And we can figure it out. But I was like, or I'll stop the play and like, that's the play where I don't care that you had a turnover that you threw right to the other team, because you only jogged back at 80% and not 100%. I don't even care about the turnover. I care about the 80% run. As long as you run back 100%, I'm good with it, right? And so I think by like implementing and just like continuing to get across that message of like what we're about and where we don't like, we have to get there together, I think made the buy-in easier.
Yeah, well, you talked about this at the beginning about just the togetherness, and whether it's the togetherness of the team, togetherness of the coaching staff. And I think what you mentioned about the follow through, I think is really important too. And those things that you practice to make sure that you're consistently following through with them, because your players will notice one way or the other, whether or not as a coaching staff you're following through with the things that you say, or, if you're practicing what you preach, and if you're, preaching punctuality, that you're also being punctual as a coaching staff. And I think that those things really add up and can really accelerate that buy-in process, or make it so that they know the message right away, and they're completely on board and trust you and what you're saying. So a lot of little good tidbits there. Now, in terms of on the court, I don't know how much of this you can speak to, because I don't know how much you can really know what it was like before you got there in terms of on the court practices, but were there things that you implemented whether it was offensively or defensively, that seemed to work or seemed to click, or were there things that you did that hadn't been run previously? I'm curious in terms of what that was like for you on the court.
Yeah, I had not seen kind of what they had tried to do in the previous years, right? I got in day one and I was going to implement the things that I had had success with, as a coach before, just in AAU ball or things that I've picked up that I knew kind of worked, quick hitters, out of bounds plays, certain presses that I liked. And so I kind of came in day one and was just like, we're going to give these a try and we're going to kind of run with them from there. And so we've been a dribble drive offense since day one, 4 out with 1 in. We want to get in the paint. We want to shoot free throws. I am maybe not a modern analytics coach, even though I love analytics and all that. I love looking at numbers, but I love mid-range jump shots. We teach them in our program. We encourage them in our program. So getting a dribble handoff, taking one dribble inside the 3-point line and pulling up for a mid-range jumper, I am totally okay with. A lot of times, I go to a player and I'm like, hey, Ellie, right there, just pull up for that little mid-range, right? And not every coach, teaches that and things like that. So we have played fast, even sometimes to our detriment, but we played fast early on and made mistakes. And I think it helped us be fast this year and last year when we had better success. We press basically the entire game, or, if I get up 20 or something, then we'll pull it off. Or if I get up 15, depending on what it is, we'll pull it off type thing. But then we create that pressure at all levels. So whether we're zone pressing, whether we're man pressing, or even if we're running some sort of just a 2-3 zone, I constantly say to the girls, if we're not active in the zone, we're not playing a zone. I'd rather, have you guys play man, because I know you have to be active. So even our zones are very active and big arms and, and not just standing in one area.
Right.
And then, since day one, has to do with, talking about effort and energy, but we do extra pass drills every day. And the girls know what they are. The girls kind of know, what number we're trying to reach, or what, in a certain time frame, how many makes we're trying to get. And some of those drills are San Antonio Spurs drills, or Warriors drills or something like that. But it's like, we're so emphasized on the extra pass that like we drill that every day. And, our leading scorer this year scored 11 points a game,
Okay.
And so we went 11, she went 12. So we went 12, 11, 9, 8, 8, 7, and then 2, 3, 4, or something like that. So we just, and I've heard coaches talk about it before, but since we didn't have a 30-point per game score, right, we were able to get teams from all these different places. And, and in our state semifinal, one of our players had her career high. She had, 23 points and hit 6 threes. And of course we know that's going to happen. And we had 18-point games or 20-point games, right? So that's going to happen. But we had a player make 3 straight threes on 3 straight possessions, and she was wide open on that 4th possession, and someone closed out her and she made the extra pass. And it's just like, we've tried to emphasize that so much since day one. Even in losses, we'll go to the girls and say, girls, you're making the right passes. You guys have to believe us. You guys have to understand that you're making the right passes. The shots just aren't falling, but you guys are running good offense. And so trying to like implement kind of those 3 things. We want to get in the paint. We want to be aggressive. We want to pressure. It doesn't matter if it's in a zone, if it's in man, if it's full court, if it's a half court, and we want to make the extra pass. Have been really 3 core things I've tried to do with the program.
I think what I find really interesting about your answer in particular was the idea about being aggressive and putting pressure, because I feel like that is such a common thread for so many programs that have, had a turnaround or had more success and done things that to get to a higher level than maybe they had in the past, was just the idea of, getting out there on the press, running and getting up and down the court. And I feel that almost every coach I've ever talked to who's said that they've done that to try and like help turn a program around has had a lot of success with that. And I think that for you personally, one of the things that probably also works well with that is it kind of matches you as a coach as well. It sounds like, your team's getting up and down and energetic and aggressive. And it almost sounds like that mirrors your coaching philosophy as well.
Yeah, I'm in a crouching crouching position, then standing. I'm walking up and down the sidelines. I clap on every single make. I'm very high energy in the games, right? And the girls have come to me before where I think that, we should be only half courting a man or half court defense on a team because they're moving a ball or breaking our press well, and they'll come to me and they'll say, no, let's press. We can get them kind of where we want them to go. And I'm like, all right, if you guys want to give it a try, then let's get after it. And yeah, we are lucky in the sense too. I have some D1 soccer players. I've got some D1 track players. I have a D1 volleyball player right now. So we have got some great athletes in our program, which definitely helps the pressure. But there was a quote I heard 2 years ago, and it's something that we've written up there a lot. But it's, if you're not applying pressure, you're feeling it, and it's just like that. Just like so clicked with me. I was like, no, we're going to bring it to them on offense and defense, because if we're not bringing it to them, that means they're bringing it to us, and we'd rather be the one that's kind of dictating the tempo.
Right, like acting versus reacting kind of philosophy. That. Go ahead.
Even if we're in half court man. I'll go to one of my guards and, hey, Ellie, pick her up full court. Just so she has to, and it's just Ellie, and she's just going to make that girl change directions once or twice, right? Instead of her being able to casually walk the ball to half court.
Yeah, it's kind of like a reminder, like, yeah, we're still here. Like, don't worry. You're still going to be putting a little bit of effort in just to even do this. And yeah, you can't get caught napping, or well, you won't get caught napping, but they might actually is a better way to phrase that. And I think that, like you mentioned, like you said, you are fortunate enough that you do have, some D1 athletes, but I still think that regardless of who you have in terms of athletic ability, you can still, throw people out there. You can still get up and down. And like you even mentioned, there will be mistakes, there will be overplays or bad angles or things like that. But that I feel like can be corrected and fixed a little bit, but you have the energy already where you want it to be. So even if they're not the most athletic, I also think, just as an additional point to that, if they're not, and they're like younger players, then they're going to know maybe like what they need to do to, maybe get themselves in better physical conditions. They can, make those stops or make those traps or do those things that they want to do. So to me, I don't see much of a downside in it. Like, if that's your philosophy and that's what you want to do, don't worry if you don't really have the athletes, just go out there and do it. And I think your players will surprise you.
Yeah. And, and because it's a thing we work on daily, the players and obviously I'm not saying that the other girls in our program aren't great athletes. We have girls that are going to division, 1 schools for athletics, but though even those other players, because they're part of it a daily, every day in practice, they see the rotations, they know the rotations, they know where they're supposed to be. And again, like I mentioned earlier, if they get beat on a play, I love watching it on film, and it's something I'll send the clips to the girls or show it to them at practice. But there's every single time, because it's now an expectation, and they know it's what us as a staff is trying to achieve. If they miss on that steal, then they don't jog back in the play. They sprint into that play, and we might get a back tap out of it. Or maybe a teammate that helped out on that missed play, as they see their teammate rotating to their player, they're dead sprinting to the corner because they now know that they have to cover that player. And just like that energy and effort aspect of it, because they know if they want to play, it doesn't matter how skilled you are, as long as you're giving us great effort, you will get minutes. That just naturally picks up and makes up for, any differences or anything.
No, and it reminded me of a great little well, I guess it's story is probably the best way to phrase it. There's a coach who I was talking to back home where I grew up in Illinois, and he talks about how he's always amazed, because his team is like yours, and that they get up and down, and they don't hang their head or anything like that. If there's a turnover, they're just going to come right back at you. And he was telling me, he's like, Coach, you'll be amazed at how many times my players will give up a turnover and a basket on the other end, and then we just go right back at them and score in 5 seconds, like it's our own fast break. It's amazing how often that you can just catch teams napping. That team who got a turnover off you, they might be all happy and celebrating, or slowly getting back on defense or setting up whatever they are, and then before you know it, you can just get right back at them, and there you go. You just nullified it, so to speak. It's crazy.
The 1 or 2 dribble pitch ahead for layups, it is built. We get 6 or 8 points a game on that, and we've had coaches call timeout, and we can hear them being you made a shot. You guys got to sprint back. And
Yeah.
that is a big thing. I mean, I had a player last season miss 4 straight layups on 4 straight possessions, but get 4 steals on those same 4 possessions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
I believe it. Yeah.
She missed the layup, and we're like, sprint back. It's okay. You know, it just happened to roll out, and she sprints back, and the person bringing it up throws a lazy lob to the wing, and she's on a dead sprint. She intercepts the pass. You know, the next possession, she misses a layup, and then she sprints back and back taps. And I just like went to the team after the game, and I was like, that is why she plays. I go, that is why we're having success. Is it's like, you know, you miss 4 layups, you can hang your head, but there was never any part of her that was like, okay, I should sulk. She sprinted back and gets 4 steals. And it's like, this is exactly what we're about, those 4 positions.
And there's so many opportunities like that within the game to kind of sneak up on teams or surprise teams or, you know, get those turnovers or back taps. You know, I know that there's many coaches who I've watched and seen who get easy baskets after the other team's made a free throw. They have like a set play, and like you said, like 2 passes up ahead, and they just scored after the other team just hit a free throw on them. Like there's always opportunities there, and it is quite amazing when you kind of look at it and you see those players giving effort, how many of those, you know, opportunities that change momentum arise.
Well, and
Go ahead.
this is I say to my high school girls all the time, and I actually said to one of my AAU girls last weekend, because we went to Utah to play a tournament, and you know, first time they'd played in 7 months, and so we're all a little rusty and things like that.
Sure.
But I say this to my high school girls too all the time. It's like, girls, we're averaging 60, 70, 80 possessions in one game, right? We're taking 35 twos, we're taking 17 threes, and we're shooting 10 free throws, right? If you add that up, that's 70, 80 possessions. I go, if you miss a layup, like, who cares? You have the next possession, right? If you airball a 3 and the next possession you have a wide open 3 from the same spot, you have to take it, because it's like, you know, there's just so many possessions that we can't get hung up on that one missed steal that you got, that one missed layup you got. You know, it's like, no, you'll get it the next possession, or you'll get it another possession in this game. We just have so many possessions that you're going to get another break at it. So let's not hang on that one possession.
Right. And mistakes can get compounded so easily if you have, you know, the turnover that you give up, and then you didn't sprint back on defense when maybe you could have made a stop, and then you gave up 2 points, and it's like, well, now it's a negative play at that point. So yeah, no, I'm right there with you, Coach. Now, speaking of on the court, and I know this time's flying by, but speaking of on the court, I want to talk about things in practice, because I know that was something that was brought up that people wanted me to ask you about, in terms of things that you thought were important to be doing in practice, or habits in practice, or drills, you know, whatever the case is, but something in your practices that you think has been really helpful to get your program where you want it to be. Because as we know, practice time is super valuable and sometimes super limited. So what is it that you think you've implemented or done in practices to really get the most maximum benefit out of?
Sure. So a big thing, you know, is we are what we emphasize. And to me, you know, if you're a coach, and I didn't really realize it until I heard a coach say it, but every time I grab our stat book after a game, or our iPad, or whatever the stats are on, I look at 3 things first. And to me, those are the 3 things that I care about most I care about as much as a coach, right? And I value those the most. And to me, those are turnovers, rebounds, and free throws. So the 3 things that we work on most, I mean, free throws, of course, every program is going to work on, but we do designate time at the beginning, the middle, and the end of practice for free throws, and throughout practice and all that. But, you know, offensive rebounds and defensive rebounds and turnovers are just, you know, just kill everything we're trying to do, right? And so we do rebounding drills in that sense. We do a lot of double team drills. We do drills where we're playing, you know, 4 offensive girls against 5 defensive girls, to try to make them figure out how they're going to adapt to pressure, right? Because yes, we're going to turn the ball over, but we want to limit those as much as we can, right? I'll take an open 3, but you know, an early open 3 over forcing a pass, right? And then, like I said, some of those things that we emphasize too on, you know, dribble drive, we work on getting to the hoop and how to use our body when we get to the hoop. We work on those daily, because we want extra passes, right? Especially in the flow of offense and in transition, we work on those, you know, 2 dribbles in, kick it to the corner, 2 dribbles baseline, kick it to the next corner, 2 dribbles to attack the rim, kick it out to the top of the key for a 3, right? And then everybody follows their pass. And it's just getting that idea of we want to attack the rim, but we want to make the extra pass, right? Rebounding drills, right? Well, everybody's got their own version of what rebounding drills are. I don't usually do the very, fundamental one where it's 2-on-2. We treat it more of when we scrimmage, we keep track of those rebounds, or we stop it and say, hey, you guys have given up 4 offensive rebounds and that was your max number and things like that. Because to us, you got to finish your defensive possession with the rebound, that type things like that. And then just playing fast. We really do practice how to play fast, getting the ball out of the hoop. Our 5s always rim run. We've got our corner outlets. Once we attack the paint, we always have someone that drags to the corner so that if help does come, even in transition, we have corner 3s available early and often. So those are things just on a daily basis where we're always getting the girls to feel uncomfortable in being trapped, because then the more that they get trapped every day in practice, the more comfortable they become with it. So they don't panic in a game. And then, just working on fast, playing fast, working on attacking the rim, working on extra passes. We do those 4 things every single day, just different versions of them.
And so it sounds like then that the players, they kind of know the message, they kind of know the philosophy of your team. And I think what that does is that they already have a sense of, like, on the court, like, okay, I might not 100% sure know what the right read is or what the right thing is to do, but I know I need to be aggressive. I know I need to be hustling. I know I need to be, giving it my max effort. And I feel like things tend to kind of align within that vision. And so the players, it seems like they understand, like, no matter what the situation, kind of what their end goal is or what they should be doing in terms of their effort, and whether or not, the result is 100% great. Like, they understand what you're emphasizing as a coach. Am I kind of getting that right?
Yeah. They definitely know what we're trying to get, where we're trying to get our shots from, right? But everybody has the freedom to take those shots too. And by doing that extra pass every day, by doing that 2 feet in the paint every day, right? They have an idea, and it doesn't matter, right? If you're a starter or if you're first off the bench, if you're player number 10, everybody knows, like, the areas. Our drop zones is something that we talk about a lot, where we're always trying to get the ball right. We're trying to specifically look for those short corner 3s, right? We try to get away from those wing 3s if we can, just because short corners obviously just closer to the hoop. But also, by us playing that specific style and by us pressing and when we go to play teams in our conference, they go, here come the handoffs. But we know if a team is going to try to take away handoffs, that means our back cuts are available. That means if teams are switching, we know when we get the handoff where to attack this, the switch, things like that. But our favorite thing by trying to achieve that is we know that when teams come to play us, we're stealing practice time from them. And a coach that I talk to on a regular basis is the first one that ever said that to me. But when teams know that, they're coming to play like Washington, they know they're going to expect a certain type of pressure. They know to expect that we're going to attack the rim, and they know to expect that we're going to play fast. And so by other teams knowing that, then we're stealing practice time from them, because they're prepping on how to break our press. They're prepping on what to do on the dribble drive, right? And so then we're taking away from their practice time where they're getting to focus on getting better.
And it sounds like it's been super beneficial for you on both of those fronts, in that it's what you emphasize in terms of the pressure and getting out there and attacking. And then it also helps in the sense that the other teams have to prepare for it, and they have to adjust maybe what they would normally do to kind of get ready for you. And I think that's also probably something that's kind of exciting or kind of interesting for your girls as well, to kind of know that, like, these teams are, they got to prepare for us, or, that they got to adjust to what we do. I think that, maybe even indirectly kind of gets a little bit of your team excited and kind of helps with your culture and identity of as a team as well.
Yeah. And I think the girls, once I kind of told that, sentence to them or emphasized it, right, that I was like, hey, girls, we're stealing practice time from them. They started to realize how much we're not focusing on other teams either. Right. Yeah. Because then we try to get across to them, or the staff and I, it's just like, we're not worried about other teams at this point, right? And that's not us trying to be cocky at all, or overconfident. It's just like, girls, we're at the point right now that we think that if we come in and we take care of what we need to, we focus on our core principles, that we're going to be successful in what we do defensively and offensively, right? So of course, if, going into the state semifinal, we talked about out of bounds plays that the other team runs. And naturally before a game, we might spend a few minutes in the locker room or even at practice if we have to, but we don't rarely worry about other teams, just because we're like, if we do what we know we can do and we control what we can control, we don't turn the ball over, we rebound the basketball, we make our free throws, then we think we're going to be pretty successful. And, in the last few seasons, that started to happen. And I think them seeing that, again, come to fruition, it makes them, again, buy into what we're trying to do.
And just to kind of tie that in together, like we kind of talked about, it also saves you a lot of time as a coach, and that you are just going to stick to what it is that you do. And I think that it also helps the players a lot, because they're not having to, constantly adjust on the fly to who their opponents are, what their opponent is doing. They can just focus on getting better on the things that they need to get better on. And I think that they probably have a lot more significant improvement, because they're always just focusing on those core foundational, values that your team has, rather than feeling like they have to go over all these different situational things depending on the team they're playing.
Yeah, we had a team we played last season, had really good sets, really good quick hitters, right? And we had done research on them, and the ball went to a certain area, girls, watch out for this backdoor cut. But we ended up saying to them before the game, we're like, girls, the one thing about sets is they have to get into them, right? Their 5 has to be at the elbow, their 2 has to be in the corner, their 3 has to be setting the screen, right? And I was like, let's not let them get into their sets, right? And we have a shot clock in Washington. So we're pressing, they have 30 seconds to score. And then all of a sudden, by the time they've broken their press, or even in the half court, we're bumping cutters, we're double teaming pick and rolls, things like that. It's, they've got 8 seconds to try to get to their spots and then run their play, right? And it's like, we took them out of their sets because we never let them kind of get into their sets, and that was just like, and the girls are like, okay, are you going to talk to how we need to defend it? We're like, no, we're just going to give them enough pressure and make them feel us enough that they're just not going to be able to get into their sets, right?
Well, just to kind of add to that, if you're playing against a team that has a lot of great sets, and those sets require, them to do A, then B, then C, then D, then E. Well, if you just disrupt one of those things, then that throws the whole set off, unless they're really well coached. And if they're really well coached, then maybe they have other things to go off of. But at the same time, you just you disrupt it first, and you see what happens, and you play your way.
And the teams that we either lost to or had great competitive games with, were just able to basically play 5-out read and react basketball, or keep it really simple, and they were able to adjust and not really, those are the teams that we had issues a little bit with this year, right? Because they were able to adjust more on the fly, which again made our girls defensively have to react and do different things. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, especially at the high school level, it's like, if we can get teams to get out of their sets, and that's so much why we believe so much in dribble drive, is because it's, sure, we might have specific spots that we want to get to, but if you're overplayed, back cut. If you can't score, kick it out or pitch it back to someone who's wrapping behind you, who then will attack the rim, right? And it's all, if they close out too hard, drive baseline. And if a drive baseline happens, then we can get a tee up from our post player, or we can get someone dragged into the corner for a 3, right? And we're just, we're having high IQ basketball players just play basketball, right? And react to what's going on.
And it empowers them, it seems, to make the right decision, or what they feel is the right decision based on what they see. And they're not limited to, 1 or 2 options, or having to do a certain thing, because and I know that a lot of coaches listening know this, but if you run a lot of sets and you run a lot of fixed plays, of fixed movement, it's not going to be too long before there's going to be film on you, and coaches are going to recognize exactly what that player does, and like you kind of do, is just do what you can to disrupt it, and then just see what happens after. So I think it also leads to empowerment too, is giving your players control of what's happening as well.
Yep. And, of course we had quick hitters and we ran them throughout the season. And that's what we kind of told the girls, because we're explaining all these philosophies to them. It's like, girls, we have quick hitters, but we're only going to have 2 or 3, and we're going to maybe run them 2 or 3 times a game. And that's just when you guys are a little bit stagnant, or maybe we haven't scored in a few possessions, or we're getting good looks at a dribble drive, but maybe the shots haven't fallen. Now we're going to try to specifically get someone an open 3. We're trying to we have a 6'4" girl. We're going to specifically try to get her posted up, right? It's like,
exactly.
A few of those sets, but, and even at the state tournament, for the most part, we just let them play basketball. And then throughout the game, in our Elite 8 game, it was a 1-point game with 45 seconds left. And we ran our quick hitter for the first time that game and got a layup to give us a 3-point lead with 30 seconds left. Right. And that was, but if we were trying to run that every 7 plays, then maybe it doesn't work with only a minute left in the game.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that just having the general philosophy, which it sounds like you do, of, this is our dribble drive, here's all the options you have. But because you have high IQ players and you have players who have the ability to make decisions, that if you need them to do a quick hitter, there's something you need to draw up, then, well, they already know, like, okay, this is what I need to do, and I can just run this quick hitter. Like, it's not that big of a shift where it's things that they have to memorize. You can just kind of tell them a couple actions, or here's our end goal, or here's the action we need to get out of this, and then sounds like it can kind of happen.
Yeah, and just playing off that point to finish up, it's like what we try to do is we try to simplify the game as much as we can while still being effective. So even our quick hitters, it is one simple pass, cut, looking for this layup. One simple pass, flare screen, open 3. One simple pass, come off a back screen for a potential lob, right? It's not like It's not like we're going pass to the wing, down screen, reverse cut, double down screen, right? It's not, and so and that's what we even try to tell the girls. Like, we went to put in a third quick hitter and they're like, oh, we're not going to be able to remember this. And I was like, we're not doing anything complicated. We're keeping this simple, right? Everybody will. And part of us, by trying to run quick hitters that we do, it doesn't matter what position you're in. You should be able to know what you're doing, right?
Exactly.
Because sometimes 2 out of the 5 players are just screening for each other in the corner, and the only reason we're doing that is to pull their defenders, right? We're like, so if you're not in position A, B, or C, just kind of move in the corner to move.
No, that's great. No, I like that a lot. And yeah, as you mentioned, is just keeping it simple and focusing maybe on just the end result of what you're getting, and then having a couple actions that you run, and just putting the trust in your players to make things happen that you want. I like that a lot.
Yep.
Now I know that we could probably go on for hours and hours on this, but we're gonna shift into our concluding segment here. So Coach, what I want you to go through, if you can, is what is a coaching moment from your career, whether it's at your current program, AAU, or something in the past? What's a coaching moment of yours that you think others listening would be able to learn from?
Sure. One jumps to my mind immediately, right? Again, I've talked about how I am energetic when I coach. I'm emotional when I coach, right? I'm always having a conversation with the refs and stuff. And one time in a game 2 seasons ago, I was fired up. I'm not a cursor. I'm not like a crazy yeller, but I'm intense and stuff. And we just didn't have it going, right? And I was talking to the refs, and in a timeout, I was like, girls, we got to pick it up. And I look at my assistant coach, right? And I'm like, what can we do differently? Like, what do we need to change? And she looks at me and she goes, maybe you should sit down for a second. Right? And it's like, and it kind of goes back to why I started to try to implement things like saying to the girls, what do we need to do differently in the program? Or, hey, what do you guys want to run this possession? Because sure, we all as coaches put a lot of time into it, have an idea of how things are going to work out. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's just like, take a step back, let them play the game for a second, right? Let's not try to control every moment. And and after she said that, moving forward, I have definitely approached how I coach games a little bit differently, where I'm more like trying to be supportive to the players instead of trying to be like, pass, hey, Ellie, pass it, Rosa, shoot it, Hannah, box out. It's like, no, like, let them play a little bit. Let them figure it out. I don't need to control every moment.
Yeah. And I think that whether it's that yelling or that constant giving of directions. I think that can wear on players too. I think that could be a little bit wearing, and that can be a little bit a much. And I think what it kind of boils down to, it seems, is kind of like knowing your players as well too, and knowing the way that you need to communicate with them, and just kind of getting a feel for the moment, and understanding what your team needs in that moment. I think it also probably helps a lot. And it's probably something too that you've probably learned from experience, and how to deal with these sort of situations now.
Well, oddly enough, that's when in our second season where we started to have success, we went on a 9-game winning streak, was right around that time, right? Where I, again, I was, not that I was so much yelling, it was more just like trying to, encourage the players to do certain things instead of just like, hey, like, let's play. I'm just going to support you guys. If I think we need to change something, I will, and so, yeah, that definitely appreciate that coach saying it to me.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, and I know I've been there too, like what I think I'm saying isn't how it sounds at all. And like what I think I'm communicating, or what I think my emotion is not the way that they're interpreting it. And if they're not interpreting it that way, then, well, your message really isn't getting across the way you want it to.
And just a quick final thing on that, like that same game, because we're big on body language. We talk about body language because we want good energy, right? We want great effort. So that means our body language goes with it. And that same game where that coach told me to take a seat, right? When I was watching film the next day at practice, I go to the girls and I go, girls, I'm sorry for my body language. It was awful, right? I can't expect you guys to be so energetic and have so much fun playing and to support each other if I'm not the one that's also doing that, trying to be on that same page. And so, yeah, I just making sure that we keep things positive even in tough times.
Like it. Love the apology part too. I think that it shows a lot, and your players will accept that apology. And a lot of players aren't used to being apologized to. And so there's never a wrong reason to do it if you feel like you need to. I like that a lot. Now finally, Coach, to wrap up, what I give every guest is what I call my 60-second soapbox, their opportunity to get out their final thought, closing message, the final idea that they want our listeners to hear. So, Coach, I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. The floor is yours.
My big thing, I've tried to do this with every team I've coached, and I feel like this is part of the success I've had, and I've talked about it already on this podcast, is I check in with all 10 players every day. I treat player number 1, who's the leading scorer and captain, the same as player number 10. When a practice starts, the first 15, 20 minutes before practice starts that we all get in the gym together, where they're taking off their shoes and putting their phone away and maybe eating a snack before practice, is my favorite 15 minutes of every practice. It's because during that time, hey, how was class today? And they'll tell me a funny story, or they'll come into practice and, Jeff, I got a 98 on my test today. I'm like, let's go, or they'll say, Jeff, have you heard that new song? Or did you see that Instagram post by that celebrity? And it's just like, we're just talking, we're growing together, right? I'm able to hear about what's going on off the court. Hey, Jeff, I just passed my drive test. I think I'm going to get a car next week. Hey, Jeff, I just got accepted into, University of Washington. And, and it's just like, those 15 minutes are my favorite 15 minutes ever, like every day, because we're not even playing basketball. We're all sitting on the bleachers. They're putting on their shoes. I bring them some bars and oranges to snack on every day before practice. And, and we're just hanging out. And it's like, and by, us creating that connection every day before practice, they realize that I'm not there just to win basketball games. I want to hear how their days are going. I want to hear what their plan is for college. I want to hear, how they're developing into adults, and, and how we're luckily able to be a part of their process.
And there's so much, as you just spoke on, there's just so much you can learn just from those 10, 15-second conversations about them and what they're going through. And I think what it really does too is just shows that you care about them as people, and you care about what's actually going on in their lives and the people that they're becoming, and you don't just see them as basketball players. And I emphasize that so many times, and so do so many coaches who I have on here, but just investing in them as people and caring about them, who they are as teenagers who are growing up, is to me is the best part. And it sounds like you're the same way. So that's great. That's awesome.
I've been invited to 2 former players' weddings, being invited to graduation parties, getting happy birthday texts, or reaching out to a player to, realize that they got a new job that I see on social media. I mean, to me, that stuff is so awesome. And that happens by doing it on a daily process when I do have the opportunity to coach them.
100%. That is what it's all about. Yeah, a great closing message there. And Coach, I want to thank you for spending some time. I know there's so much to get into and so much to talk about. So thank you for sharing a little bit about what you did in this program to help turn it around, to get it where you want it to be, the off the court practices, the on the court practices. I think there's just so much good information and little nuggets here that coaches can take. And even if they're not in a position to necessarily rebuild a program, there's still little bits of information that maybe they'll want to take and utilize to just help get their program that much better. So Coach Wilson, I want to thank you so much for spending some time talking some hoops and talking about your program. It was a pleasure. Good luck this season.
Yes, thank you so much. Really appreciate what you're doing. I've loved listening to your podcast. Keep it up. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all of you listening. Hope that you enjoyed it. This was another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Basketball Teacher Podcast. Make sure to connect with us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or reach us directly through email at basketballteacherpodcast@gmail.com. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.